A very good evening to all of you. In case you're able to see or hear me, you can just drop a comment. People online. Start. हुआ है? अच्छा ठीक है I can see now. Okay, so a very good evening to all of you. Today we are meeting for the high yielding topic series. Okay, this is the very first HYT on environment. So I'll give you 1 minute to settle down. I think now I can see your comments. Okay, Bulbul, Sri Lakshmi, Sayam. So in just a minute we'll start. And again, okay, just give me a second. Okay, so I think most of you are live now. Okay, we are able to see. So here, we're going to talk today, the very first topic today is species in news. Now, many of us have challenges on how to cover this topic. So again, my agenda is going to be the species that are there in the news in the recent 1 year. And in fact, in the recent 1.5 years, I've taken them up. Okay, this is one. Okay, so major species I'll cover here. But as the HYT goes on, perhaps the last or the second last topic, again, that will be species in news part 2. Okay. Now, when we do species, couple of things to note here. Of course, we need to know the name of the species. Okay. Of course, some questions are on name, basic familiarity. You also get to know in some cases some specific behavioral patterns. Okay. And with that, there will be some terms that are there. This is one level of information, but that is not the entire thing. Additionally, when we are doing this, wherever possible, we will also see that place in news. So the moment I say Asiatic lion, you automatically think of Gir National Park in Gujarat. Okay. So again, across various topics, we'll see that you need to know the name, behaviors in terms of those species. In some cases, even the places associated with them. And additionally, if there is a government conservation program, that also we'll have a look at. Okay. Just let me know if there is an issue. I'll just. Is it working? अभी चल रहा है? No, I think it should be fine now. There was a slight glitch at our end. I think now that has been rectified. So I think that. Okay, because I can see the comments at the screen. Just let me know, is this fine? Okay, if it is fine, then we can continue right now. So I hope this part is clear. I think all of you have settled also now. Okay, so let us start and let us continue. Now here, when we prepare species news, again I'll have a very simple format. Let's say start with the invasive species, then other tree and other plants in news. Then, for example, I'll talk about certain birds in news, aquatic species in news, other mammals in news. Okay. So you can prepare accordingly so that you don't have to run behind all this. When you say species diffused, there are so many things that you can do. But if you take it step by step, that becomes very easy to do it. Okay. So again, very simple terms. I'll first start with what are the invasive species that have been in news. Okay. All you need to know the names. Where are they found? Now the basics of invasive, we have already known that invasive species are of course non-native species. And they are a threat to biodiversity. So this will lead to ultimately the reduction of biodiversity. Why? Because there is no native predator of these species. Because the predator is not present, their population will multiply. Again, the same competition for resource is going to happen. So that is the main issue. Now, what we will go and we'll see for ourselves is basically you need to know, all you need to know is the name of the species. Where was it generally found? Because many of these species would be found across India. And when I say these are invasive, it simply means none of the species is native to India. Okay. So very first heading for us is invasive. So the first thing is Senna spectabilis. All you need to know is a problem in Mudumalai National Park. In fact, Senna spectabilis, broadly, if you also see in Nilgiris, it is a problem, but more specific, if I go, I can say it's a problem or it's an invasive variety in Mudumalai National Park. So again, as a shrub, it keeps on growing on, and again, it leads to competition and other related issues. Second term you already see is red-eared turtle. Some of us have a misconception that invasive species are only plant, because generally the examples you see like Congress grass, you see like Lantana camara, you see like Prosopis juliflora. But it can also be turtle. In fact, I would say any species can become invasive when it comes outside and it tries to eat up your issues. So even a turtle can be invasive, and this is one of the world's worst invasive species, the red-eared turtle. Then you have Gambusia, which is known as mosquito fish. Okay, so I'll just show this to you when I say Gambusia. So if you want to control population of mosquitoes, then this mosquito fish, which is known as Gambusia, is used. Now the problem is, these are released in a large amount of numbers, and after a point of time they become invasive. See, there are many ways to control population of mosquitoes. One of the ways is the use of mosquito fish. Okay, so this again, remember, Gambusia, for example, had been revealed in various parts, became a invasive species. Although there are other methods of mosquito control, you may be aware about spraying DDT. You may be aware about Wolbachia bacteria. By the way, Wolbachia UPSC is already asked. Okay. Then, so red-eared turtle, you have Gambusia, that's a mosquito fish. You have Conocarpus trees. Only thing to remember, these are mangrove trees. Second thing to remember, the Gujarat Forest Department or the Gujarat government has banned the planting of Conocarpus trees. So Conocarpus trees are mangrove and banned by the Gujarat Forest Department or the Gujarat government. Again, there have been articles like this. Why has Gujarat banned the Conocarpus plants or the Conocarpus trees? So the main issue is they take up a lot of water. Uprooting them also damages the entire ecosystem. So this again becomes a challenge. Okay, so this again is an issue that you get to know. That is the Gujarat. Why has Gujarat banned the Conocarpus trees? Just remember, this is an invasive variety. Conocarpus trees, mangroves, banned by the Gujarat government. Now, even ants can be invasive. Let's say you have red fire ant. In today's lecture, I'll tell you some important attributes about ants also. So let's see. Let's firstly see what is red fire ant here. This is red fire ant. Okay. So again, red fire ants having these painful bites, they also have been discovered, and again, this is one of the world's most invasive species. In fact, this was found in Europe for the first time, so this was why this was in news. Now, a keyword that we'll see here with this case is, for example, how do these ants communicate? Ants can communicate through the release of certain chemicals. These chemicals are known as pheromones. Okay. However, they can also communicate. Now, this is a term that we'll see, stridulation. Stridulation. What is this? If you see the flapping here in this case, so the sounds that are being produced by the insect by rubbing or drumming against the different one body part with the other. So that is known as stridulation. So how can the ants communicate? One, of course, by chemical secretion like pheromones, or even by stridulation. And this also, red fire ant also becomes invasive. We are seeing it here. In fact, when I talk to you about Simlipal, I'll also tell you then again Kai chutney, the red weaver ant. This is red fire ant. Red fire ant is invasive. Red weaver ant is used for medicinal purpose also. So that's separate. Okay. So again, please keep that in mind. Okay. Then here, if you see Ludwigia peruviana, when you see Peru, so you know this has come from South America. So here also just remember the name, that this also was in news. Ludwigia peruviana, red fire ant, Conocarpus trees, Gambusia, red-eared turtle, Senna spectabilis, some of the species. Couple of other species I'll tell you. For example, Micania micrantha. Okay, so this was seen in this Bhadra Tiger Reserve. Micania micrantha. Now, we'll also see Micania micrantha in one more part. this Micania micrantha, if we say, so there has been a tribal species. So the Kadar tribes, Kadar, have been in news. Why? Because these tribal communities have taken charge against the invasive species. So they are having community driven action to remove the invasive species, like very famous ones. Again, I have not told you Lantana camara because every year this is in news. Okay, Lantana camara, Chromolina odorata, there is this Mimosa Diplotrica. I know these names are such, some of these are very complicated. You may be hearing for the first time. In these type of names, the kind of question they can ask you, okay, so that main thing to remember here is that if we are just aware that this name is related to which topic. So here in this case, we are talking of the invasive part, okay. So that is one, right? So Lantana camara, be it Chromolina. Gitesh, see, if you've already done the PCC, please keep on revising. I think second, also do the PYQs, which I've done in detail. Other than that, the HYTs can be there for your quick revision, okay? It's maybe some new topics you will find here. Other than that, just keep on revising it and solve the questions. Okay, so this will give you, the more you revise, the more confidence you will get. Okay, the confidence again is through repetition. This is something you have to do again. You have more than around 60 days or so. So make the best use of this time for revision, okay? So again, what I'm telling you, there's a Kadar tribe, okay, which is taking up a particular removal of invasive species, which includes again the prominent invasive species. Again, this is the one which we've just seen, Micania micrantha, which was also seen in Bhadra Tiger Reserve, okay? So this was in news. These are some of the prominent invasive species that are in the news, okay? Red fire ant, stridulation, just we saw. We saw why Gujarat government has banned the Conocarpus plants. We saw Gambusia, okay? One more we'll see, this is in Gulf of Mannar. Now, when I say Gulf of Mannar to you, one more species please try to remember here, when very prominent species is dugong. And we'll remember that Gulf of Mannar has India's first dugong conservation reserve. So dugong are your sea cow. These are marine herbivores. This is why we generally remember dugong. With maximum population of dugong will be found in Gulf of Mannar. Okay. Now Gulf of Mannar is facing the threat of Prosopis chilensis. Something similar we have done, and in fact this was asked by UPSC once, Prosopis juliflora. So if we say Prosopis juliflora, and that was also invasive species that we have seen, right? So if we, the Prosopis chilensis is also invasive, but this is invasive in the part of Gulf of Mannar, okay? So from the name chilensis, so you have Chile in the name. So basically again from South America this was brought, and again it takes up, if you can see here, it is spreading across. So that is how you get to know about this particular species. This is also something we have just seen. Beware of this cute red-eared turtle. So a couple of things you get to know. Number one is that there are a lot of species, okay? Be it turtle, be it different kinds of species that have been in use, they can be invasive. So please remember that, number one. And second thing is, where are they found and what is the work, okay, related to them. So that is the first part we have seen here, okay. Now, globally also there is a water hyacinth. For example, water hyacinth, when you read invasive species, the static component, in that we see water hyacinth being a problem or known as the terror of Bengal. In fact, water hyacinth is also a problem in Kerala. However, the water hyacinth can also be an invasive species or is invasive species in the Kenya lake. What is the name of Kenya's lake? That is Lake Naivasha, okay. So there have been species. In fact, we saw that particular ant being an invasive species in Europe. Similarly, this Lake Naivasha has been in news, again in Kenya. Why? Because water hyacinth has been seen and is causing a lot of problems in this case, okay. So just remember that, just be familiar, just know the names. Water hyacinth we already know is the terror of Bengal. It takes up a lot of, let's say, water, okay. So this is one major thing that you need to know. Very shortly, I'll tell you something other related to water hyacinth. So keep that in mind, okay. just a second. So that is the very first section that we did related to the invasive part. Okay, I'll just quickly recap this with you very shortly so that we are Serra spectabilis we have seen, Mudumalai in that part, we've seen red-eared turtle, we've seen Gambusia the mosquito fish, Conocarpus trees, mangroves from Gujarat, red fire ant, Ludwigia peruviana. Okay, the basic part, why we know why are these a problem, invasive species. Then this Micania micrantha in Bhadra Tiger Reserve and the Kadar tribes which are taking steps to remove the invasive species. Okay, we saw what is the meaning of stridulation, why Gujarat has banned. Gujarat again, mosquito fish, Gulf of Mannar, this is Prosopis chilensis. Okay, red-eared turtle, and lastly water hyacinth, which is also a problem in India and even outside India. Now other than this, the other static invasive species that you would have seen. Okay, so again there are many such species. So again I'm not repeating, but I'll just say it out. Right from Prosopis juliflora, okay, beat Lantana camera. Okay, other than that we have seen Russian poplar. There are other species, let's say forked fanwort, which again is a problem in the parts of Kerala. In fact, in Kerala you would have also heard about mussels, like charu mussels. All these are again which have Indian, again very famous is the Congress grass, which is also known as Parthenium. So all these are your invasive varieties. So keep a list of invasive species, keep on revising them. This would not be a problem for you. Let's move to the next segment. Okay, now here I'll talk about the trees, the plants, all of them in news. Okay, some of them have been prominently in news. We'll just know what this was related to. Now, geotagging and Aadhaar. So why the government, Jammu and Kashmir government is trying to protect chinar trees. Okay, now in India you also have something known as CHINNAR, Chinar Wildlife Sanctuary. Now this is not in Jammu and Kashmir, but this is in Kerala. This we're talking of chinar trees, these are specific to Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so here geotagging is being done, Aadhaar. So again you see a lot of technology being used for the conservation of these trees. So where are we talking about, which area? So again the idea of Jammu and Kashmir, tree Aadhaar is the first thing that you will get to know. Okay, in this case talking about it. Okay, again these are very huge canopy, these are very good looking trees. In fact, if we talk about the Dal Lake, Srinagar, so you'll get to see a lot of them. So here geotagging and digital tree Aadhaar has been talked about just for the conservation related to the chinar trees of Jammu and Kashmir. First level of information that you need to know. Now next set of information let's have a look at. Now this is again, see sometimes you may get one-liners like this and there will be some reason why we are discussing it. Now this is a slightly complicated name. We are talking of Syntrichia caninervis. Okay, what is this? This is a desert moss, okay, which has the potential to thrive on Mars. Now we have, when you read about the pioneer species in an ecosystem, you generally hear about lichens, you hear about moss. Okay, what is lichens? Lichens is then a symbiotic association of algae plus fungus. You also have, and again you also have moss. So you have a desert moss which has the potential to thrive on Mars. The name is Syntrichia caninervis. This simply tells you that this moss is, of course, if it is able to survive in these deserts in very scarcity of water, in very extreme conditions, it even has the potential to thrive on Mars. Okay, so because of this, this was in news. It's not just these moss. You may have also heard about a broad term known as extremophiles, the organisms who are able to survive at very extreme temperatures. Okay, in fact we also have a session on the important terms in news. So terms like water bears, tardigrades that are there in the news, we'll see there separately this. Okay, so here just remember this particular moss can also be found or can thrive in Mars, which simply means it will be able to withstand very difficult conditions as well. Okay, so that is one. Then again you have the semal trees. Now here not much update is needed here. Acha, lichens and moss ka meaning. Okay, see, when we are talking of plants, okay, I'll just quickly give you a very basic explanation here. See, when we are talking of plants, plants can be divided into cryptogams and also phanerogams. You may think these are very complicated names, but let us understand what these are. See, phanerogams are the ones which will have these flowers and fruits. So the flowers and fruit bearing trees, etc., that you see are your phanerogams. Okay. Cryptogams don't. So these are basically non-flowering. In cryptogams, you have three things. I'm not going to technical names right now. So you have, for example, you have algae, you have something known as moss, and you have something known as ferns. And please just notice these terms because I'll just tell you some update on fern also. Now, algae is there, you have mosses. This is the most undifferentiated and the most primitive structure that is found. So, for example, when you see, if let's say the bread is lying outside, if there's a slight moisture on the bread, you will see kind of growth of algae on that. Okay, the green colored algae will form. Then, if this algae combines with fungus, this is known as lichens. Again, this is very basic part of environment. I'm not going to too much detail because again, this is a specific lecture here on the current affairs part. Again, if you have any other issue, you can write in the comments. So algae is the most undifferentiated part. If there is some differentiation, you may see some type of leaf, okay, or stem coming up. That is your moss, slightly more differentiated. Whereas ferns is most differentiated. So you can see proper, at least some parts of stem, roots, leaves, etc. that you will see from the appearance. So that is the main thing that is related to this particular part here. I hope I'm able to explain that. So please remember lichens. When I say lichens, remember India's first lichens park is in Uttarakhand. India's first lichens park is going to be in Uttarakhand. That is the main point that you need to know. Okay, so I think that should serve the purpose here. Coming back to our part, we're talking of these samal trees. Okay. So samal trees have been in news because they were disappearing in southern Rajasthan. Okay. And again, the main point to remember in this case was these samal trees are, just remember, see, in trees, generally the question they will ask you whether a particular tree is evergreen or deciduous. Okay. So again, these samal are your cotton related trees. These are deciduous trees. They were disappearing from southern Rajasthan. Okay, so just keep this in mind, and which is why they were in news. Okay. Second, you also can write a name of a particular Gracia tribe associated with them. There is a Gracia tribe in this part of Rajasthan who is also related to this particular part. Okay, so this is there. The common name for this is known as the silk cotton tree. So it was getting, the population or the numbers were getting decreased in southern Rajasthan, they were disappearing. Okay, so from deciduous, and even in some parts, if there is decent rainfall, you can also find them in semi-evergreen areas. And there's a Gracia tribe associated with the samal trees. So again, this was in news, samal trees. Okay, so just keep a tab on this. Okay, now I just told you about ferns, right? First of all, look how a fern looks. If you see, in a fern, of course, you can see almost a root-like structure, almost some, at least stem and some leaves at least starting to come here. Now, there is a firm New Caledonia. This is the name of a place. But main thing for you to know, it has, or it talks, or it says that it has the world's largest genome. Okay. So again, when you read your basic science, so then when you talk about DNA, you talk about the whole genome mapping. From that you get to know. So here, this particular firm, and this was in news few months back, it has, or it boasts to have, the world's largest genome. And let's say if we take the human genome for reference, compared to the human genome, it is many times bigger than the human genome. So what does genome tells us? Again, everything related to those particular species, how the expression is happening. Again, you'll get to know about their behavior, basic attributes. Hence, that is why we do the genome mapping. So in this case, there's a fern from New Caledonia, which has been studied and which has the biggest genome. Sometimes you will get to know, for example, a particular mangrove species genome has been totally, let's say, carried out. So these are some of the scientific things that are being done. So this is a kind of an update. Of course, the name is very complicated here. Okay, here you have Timis Timispiteris oblanceolata, of course, slightly complicated name. But main thing is this boasts to have the world's largest genome. Anything which is world's first or largest can be of use to us. Okay. Okay. No, lichens and moss I told in the context of pioneer species. There's a concept in ecology known as ecological succession. So in this context, I had told you pioneer species, okay, which are the first to invade any area. That is the main concept. Okay. This is the concept of ecological succession. That is why I told you lichens and moss specifically. Okay, coming back. So here please remember there is a fern which boasts the world's largest genome. I know the name is slightly tough to remember, but if you just see it a couple of times, this should help. Now this tree has been in use for a couple of years, the baobab tree. Just a couple of things to know here. Now baobab tree is not endemic to India. Most of these are native to Madagascar, which is again part of Madagascar. You have Africa and Australia. First thing to remember, the baobab tree in India is found in Madhya Pradesh. Where exactly in Madhya Pradesh? In the Mandu. Okay, Mandu is in the Dhar district of Madhya Pradesh. This is where this is found. Okay, only place in India where this is found. First thing. Second thing, the moment you see a tree, you should ask whether this is evergreen or deciduous. Okay, so here in this case also, this is a deciduous tree. Now, a couple of things peculiar about it. If you see the trunk, it has a very wide trunk. So two things to remember, it can live for very long time. And second thing is, the trunk can store a lot of water. Okay, so because of this was in news. There were some articles related to how this forest department cannot permit the translocation of baobab trees. So again, just recall, the baobab trees are native to Africa, parts of Madagascar, Australia. In India, it is only found in Madhya Pradesh. Second, these are deciduous. They store a lot of water, and because of that, okay, they are known as the tree of life. And they can even live for thousands of years. So that is something very important to know about them, the baobab tree. Okay. Now, we just saw that water hyacinth is an invasive species. Okay. Just see that can the weeds or invasive species can also have any benefit or not. So here the main thing, please remember, water hyacinth can be a Swachh green resource. So what has happened in Assam, there has been an update, okay, that entrepreneurs from Dipor Beel, okay, Dipor Beel is again a Ramsar site from Assam. So what they are doing, they are turning water hyacinth, which is again a weed, invasive species, into eco-friendly products. And with this, they are also creating job opportunities. So again, we have the conception that these invasive species are always going to be negative in nature. Of course, they have a lot of negative, but they can also have certain positives. For example, in this case, they can be used as biofertilizer. Certain invasive species, even let's say like if I say eucalyptus, some of them can even have water filtration properties. So you will have a mix of both. So here again, don't be surprised if you get a statement that water hyacinth, they give you which of the following can be done with water hyacinth. They give you 4 negative points and 1 point like biofertilizer, and then you eliminate it, because again this is directly from PIB. We can do that. Okay. In fact, this plant is good phytoremediation species. See, the broad term is known as bioremediation. Bioremediation is the use of microorganisms for the treatment of the particular pollutants or an area. So when I say phyto means I am talking about the use of plants to treat or clean an area. So if I am using plants to clean an area, okay, so that is going to help in the overall treatment of that area. Okay, so that is the part. Water hyacinth can also be used as a Swachh green resource. Okay, again this is something we have seen, heard many a times, Neel Kurunji. So this is this legendary flower which blooms, okay, once in 12 years. So we are talking of the blooming, where, and again please know the scientific name for this. They can ask you, this is Strobilanthes kunthiania. Okay, so these are the blue flowers. Neel is blue, Neel Kurunji. With Neel Kurunji, remember the main location. This is Eraviculum National Park. Okay, Kerala. So this blooms once in 12 years. We're talking of the Eraviculum National Park in Kerala. Okay, so here we can also have it. In fact, not this is where you'll get a lot of population of this, but you can also find them in other areas surrounding in the Nilgiri region. Okay, so in the Nilgiri region, mostly you'll see them in Eraviculum National Park, but of course some population you can also see in the Nilgiri region as well. So just remember Nilkurunji as well. Now, we just spoke about blooming, a flower which blooms once in 12 years. Now I'll tell you about a species. Okay, so scientists discover a fire resilient dual blooming species. The previous species was blooming once in 12 years. This is a species known as Dicliptera polymorpha. So Dicliptera polymorpha, what this species is going to do, it has an unusual dual blooming pattern, which tells you that it is going to bloom twice. And how is that? So of course, you know, so there is of course a time when if the water is less, generally the tree will shed their leaves. And when there is a monsoon, when the fruiting will happen, and then the flowers will start to happen or arrive. So what will happen in this case if you have the Dicliptera? Okay, so the typical post monsoon flowering happens here, but additional flowering also happens here. The additional flowering happens, this is happening by the grassland fires. So there are locals in the region who set up a fire, and even just after that also flowering happens. So here flowering happens twice. Second, I just told you these are fire resilient. That is why when there is a grassland fire, the grassland fire triggers the flowering of this. So this is very unique attribute of Dicliptera polymorpha. But the third attribute is even more unique. Okay, this is the only known Indian species, again a technical term for you, with spicate inflorescence. Only known Indian species with spicate inflorescence. Let's see what this means. So generally, if you see, you have a stem, you have a stalk, and then you have leaf. When I say spicate inflorescence, you have a stem, you don't have a stalk. Directly the leaf will be there. So there is no stalk. So this term simply means spicate inflorescence means there is no stalk that is present. Stalk is not present. Otherwise, normally you will see you have a stem, you have a stalk, and then you have a leaf. So for this attribute, this was in news, this was found in Western Ghats. Now, when you read a lot of biodiversity in species, you will see so many biodiversity that is found in Western Ghats. Of course, we know that Western Ghats is one of the biodiversity hotspots. Okay, which is why this has a lot of biodiversity. So again, you should not be surprised that this species is being found here. You will see different dancing frogs, different kinds of varieties, almost on a day-to-day basis, new varieties are found here. Okay, so again recapping, Dicliptera polymorpha, dual blooming pattern, fire resilient. Okay, again pyro is again related to fire, pyrophytic the habitat, which is able to survive these fires. In fact, these fires are triggering its blooming. So it has dual blooming, and it's the only Indian known species with spicate inflorescence. So please keep that in mind. Okay, now there is a carnivorous plant, a rare carnivorous plant, which is known as this Utricularia, which is spotted in Rajasthan's Keoladeo National Park. Okay, the name is Utricularia. What is this? It's a rare carnivorous plant. So when you see carnivorous plant, again we know there are regions in the world where you don't have enough adequate nutrition, and to make up for this nutrition, you have carnivorous plants. You may have heard about the bladder. Okay, what you may have heard about other carnivorous plants. Okay, the pitcher plant, etc. So here, please remember just the name. Remember, the Utricularia is a rare carnivorous plant which is found in Rajasthan's Keoladeo National Park. Okay. Now, talking of Keoladeo National Park, please remember Keoladeo National Park is of course a Ramsar site. We know there is a Ramsar Convention for the conservation of these wetlands. Second, it is a part of Montreal Accord. the Keoladeo National Park. So again, the Ramsar sites which have the international importance. Right now in India, you have 89 Ramsar sites, and there are 2 of those sites which are a part of Montreal Record. One of them is Keoladeo, okay, and the other pyro is again related to fire. So pyrophytic means again they are phytic overall. They overall prefer this fire part which is there in the grassland habitat. So even if the fire is there, so they are able to survive. This is why both these two terms are related. They are fire resilient also. Okay. Again, you've heard terms like pyroclastic. Okay. So the term pyrolysis. So that term pyro is related to fire. Okay. Right. Coming back. So again, this is one of the 2 sites of Montreal Record. The other site being Loktak Lake. Okay. Loktak Lake in Manipur. So we just saw a particular carnivorous plant here. Now, here, of course, there have been many medicinal plants that have been in news. Okay, I'll tell you a couple of them. So here in this one slide only, we'll see a couple of medicinal plants that are there in the news. One of them is Subabul. Second, of course, Subabul shows potential in insulin resistance. But if you see what are the medicinal plants in use, one is Subabul. Second one is Ashwagandha. Okay, so again you see many podcasts or a lot of health awareness related to Ashwagandha. Okay, then one is Subabul. Okay, so these are the 2 ones that you can talk about. We can also, there is also Arogibcha, but Arogcha also again you can talk about even neem, but turmeric, etc. All those other ones are traditional ones that you generally are aware about. The ones that are more in news is Ashwagandha. Okay, and one is Subabul. Both of them have their own medicinal benefits, which is why they have been in news. So just keep that in mind. Okay, continuing, there is also one more important. This is sea buckthorn. Now, sea buckthorn, please note, very first thing, where is it found? So sea buckthorn is grown in cold desert of India. The question becomes, where do you have cold deserts in India? So again, some parts or the higher altitudes of Himachal, but more predominantly the parts of Ladakh is where you will have the sea buckthorn. Okay, and the sea buckthorn cultivation. Number 1. Second thing is, this sea buckthorn is very rich in vitamin C. Okay, it has a good export potential. It can survive in very limited water, because see, you are living, these are there in the cold deserts. So in cold deserts already there is a very less availability of water. Okay, so which is why you need to know. Again, very rich in omega 3, 6, 7, 9 fatty acids, neutralizes the free radicals, nourishes the skin, etc. That is there. It again supports healthy digestion, better mental clarity, so on and so forth. So this is there. It produces an edible berry. Main thing to remember here is that Ladakh very recently got a GI tag, the geographical indications tag, for the sea buckthorn. With GI tag, we will remember that there is a GI Act of 1999 in India, okay, which is compliant with WTO is World Trade Organization's TRIPS provisions. And in fact, the very first product in India to get a GI tag was the Darjeeling tea. Today we'll also see Darjeeling in a separate context. Okay, so there's a very specific zoological park in Darjeeling that is in news. So just remember the benefits of sea buckthorn. Where is it cultivated? Okay, it got a very recent GI tag, which is why there is a talk about it. Now, first of all, there is something known as CITES. CITES is the convention related to the trade of endangered species. CITES. Okay, please remember, CITES is legally binding, but it does not take the place of national laws. Now, in CITES there is something known as RST. RST means Review of Significant Trade. Review of Significant Trade. Okay, there are 2 updates on review. So directly if they ask you review of significant trade, is it related to, and the first option is WTO, we may actually mark WTO thinking that it is related to WTO. That would be wrong. So here RST first of all is related to CITES. Now if a species is added to RST, अगर हम species किसी को भी add कर रहे हैं इसमें, it means that particular species will be subject to more restrictions. The export of that species will be very difficult. Okay. So what is the news? There are two news. Number one, red sanders, maybe from the image you have been able to make out. Red sanders and even agarwood. Two things, red sanders and agarwood, both of them have been moved out of the RST process. If they were included initially, they were included in RST process, which means the export of these two was very difficult. Now what I'm saying, they have been moved out of the RST process. It now means their export is now easy to do. Okay, yes, good, Kundan, that's correct. Teal carbon is also there. So now two things here. Up very quickly, if we want to recall for red sanders and even for agarwood, see red sanders, first of all, where is it grown? Again, we all are very familiar with the movie Pushpa. So this is first of all found where? Deciduous or evergreen. UPSC has asked you. It is found in deciduous. Okay, or this is a deciduous tree. Second, does this have an aroma? It does not. This is non-aromatic. This is very important. Non-aromatic. Red sanders. Red sanders is heavily trafficked. Not just in India, across the world. And to stop that, you have had different operations. For example, one of them I can tell you is Operation Rakht Chandan. This was carried out by the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. Operation Rakht Chandan, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. Again, it is non-aromatic, deciduous. This question was asked few years back where UPSC just mentioned that red sanders is evergreen. Now, if I know, and especially when I say if I know the area, if I know Andhra Pradesh, so of course I am talking of Eastern Ghats. They of course have lesser rainfall. If it is lesser rainfall, so the better answer would be deciduous, right? So again, we have to keep this in mind. So this is Eastern Ghats, okay? Specifically, if you want to know, Sheshachalam Hills, very close is the Tirupati temple. So in that region around, you will find the red sanders. That is one, okay? Similar, agarwood was also in news, okay? Agarwood also has been removed out of the RST process. For agarwood, only thing you have to remember here is, agarwood is critically endangered. And again, very rudimentary, agar, you know, agarbatti, okay, agarbatti. So here this is used in various applications, agarwood, including the incense manufacturing, okay. In all these processes, agarwood is used, but agarwood, please remember, is critically endangered. So RST process of sites tells you about these two specific tree varieties also. You have red sanders, you have agarwood, both of them related to RST, both of them have been excluded now from RST, which makes their export easier. That is what you need to know. Okay, that is what I wanted to tell you about the agarwood. Now, one last thing, because we have been talking about certain tree and plant. Here I specifically am talking of a fungus. Please note, this is the first thing to happen in the world. India has registered a global first of a plant fungus infecting human. Okay, otherwise you would generally see the plant the plant fungus would be infecting other plants or even in the animals, etc. But here in this case, they are infecting the humans. Okay, again, Kolkata man catches a potentially deadly plant disease. This is the first such case in the world. Okay, all you need to know, what is the name? This is a particular fungus that grows. The name of the fungus is Chondrosterium purpureum. Okay, slightly complicated name here as well. Main thing is, this is a global first, a plant fungus which is infecting a human. Okay, so this is Chondrosterium purpureum, plainly a plant fungus. Just remember it. This is impacting a human. That is the main takeaway for you. Okay. Other than that, you may have heard about the rhododendrons. Rhododendrons are also basically found, again, you will find them across Himalayas. Okay, so even in Himachal Pradesh, you will find them. For example, now there is also rhododendron vatti, W-A-T-T-I, particular rhododendron tree also found in parts of this Nagaland, recorded for the first time in Manipur. Okay, so this basically is an orchid species. By the way, this rhododendron directly is also mentioned in the class 7th NCRT, okay, of geography. So just be aware, of course, this has been cited across the Himalayas. You can see in some areas rhododendron. So even in Nagaland, very first time was cited in Manipur, we just saw. the particular development. The Loktak Lake was in Manipur, okay, one of the sites of Montreal record, okay, so please keep this in mind. So this was the major updates on the plant, trees, and even the fungus varieties, okay. So what have we done till now? We've seen all the invasive species in news. We've also seen the major plants and trees that are in news, okay. No, the fungus can directly impact the human, okay. So again, fungus has a lot of toxin. In fact, they can also be deadly. They can directly even kill the person. So that is why these are very dangerous, because they will create the toxins and ultimately lead to death. In fact, if you remember way back in COVID, even when the person is in ICU or even in the home as well, one can also be infected via fungus as well. Okay, so fungal infections are in fact very difficult to treat. But this is a particular plant fungus. In fact, the person which we are talking about was a particular scientist. Okay, so he was actually testing some of the plant varieties. From that, the particular infection would have come. So that is the main part. Okay, so I hope we are clear on this, right? Now I have very interesting update on the aquatic ecosystem part. Okay, if you have been following the newspapers, in the month of this particular February, there have been articles in all the international media, in the national media, about a very rare occurrence that has happened. Okay, and we will see that. What is that rare occurrence? This is that rare occurrence. Okay, we have seen a black demon fish captured for the first time in video. Okay, if this particular part is not very clear to you how this looks like, I'll have one more image. This is the black demon fish. Okay, now first of all, let us understand what is the thing happening here. See, this is your ocean. You have the photic zone where the light is available. Then there are deep sea creatures found deep inside. Generally what will happen, the creatures normally, for example, the creatures which are found close to the sea surface are found here. The deep sea creatures generally were moving in their own habitat. So for the very first time, the recording of these deep sea organisms has happened on the shores or on the top areas. So what is the particular variety? If you see this, this is a angler fish, okay, which has many different names. The name, for example, here is angler fish, very rare variety. If you see on this, almost like an antenna, you have a luminescence bacteria, the bacteria which glows. So when this ship is moving, or let's say this is moving, if you see this particular part of this this particular fish is glowing. Why? Because the bacteria is emitting light. Okay, so this almost looks like a rod, and that is how it moves through. So that is the name. So it is basically, it can be a black demon fish. Okay, this is an angler fish. Main thing to remember is these are deep sea creatures. Okay, and now they are coming back to the surface. So I'll just tell you one of the very prominent, let's say, headings of Indian Express, and with that we'll also see doomsday predictions. Now, from black sea devil, this was what we just saw, to doomsday fish, 5 deep sea animals that have showed up on the earth's surface for the first time in the recent years. Okay, across almost all publications we would have find these particular articles. Okay, so these are very astonishing. So first, so what are those 5 species? In this, I would just want you to know, remember just the names of these species. These are all deep sea creatures. Okay, this article talks about the 5 major species which are deep sea creatures, but they have resurfaced back to the surface, right? First is what we've just seen is the angler fish, the deep sea angler fish. This is your deep sea angler fish. Okay, so this almost, it can grow, so we have seen that. Okay, and here the male and the female are not same in the deep sea angler fish. Main thing is that, let's say, the adult male is not equipped to eat and live as a parasite on the female's body. So there's a difference between how the female and the male are adapting. So that's a specific difference. Other than that, when you see here that how they move, again they have a luminescent property. Again, it looks almost very venomous in nature. Okay, very dangerous. But overall, that is the main part, that these are deep sea creatures. Now, you would be wondering, sir, why this is happening? Why are the creatures from bottom are they coming to top? Why? One, and here there is no exact explanation. There are some possible explanation. One is perhaps because of illness they are coming up, one reason. Second, because of overall changes in the global atmospheric, or let's say because of climate change also. Third, another thing can be said because of habitat destruction. Overall changes in the salinity of these water levels also, there can be a possible explanation, but still we don't have a very conclusive proof as to why exactly, why are they coming up, okay? So first thing we have just seen is the demon fish or the angler fish or the devil fish. That is the first one. Other than that, you have a giant oar fish, okay? Now this oar fish was also seen very recently in Japan. Okay, so again, why the Japanese believe this doomsday fish etc. comes to the surface, and again they have their own things that if they come to the surface there will be a lot of disaster coming in, okay? But for us, main thing to remember here is that where exactly, so for example, this black sea devil was seen in Spain. It surfaced in Spain. This oar fish was seen in Japan. So there are throughout different parts of the earth. All you need to know is the names. So angler fish or the devil fish, number one. Oar fish in Japan. You have, let's say, the goblin shark. You have the deep sea jellyfish. Just see the names once and you are done. And the frilled shark, because this has got a lot of media attention this year. So there could be a, see, doomsday fish is just the other name for the oar fish. In fact, see, doomsday, what is the meaning here? That something bad will happen. So again, there are different, let's say conventions in different parts of the world, that, and you would have seen, okay, different folklores and different stories. If they are saying, so then they are saying this is a doomsday prediction, that if they come up, something bad is going to happen, just like that. Just remember it. So blacks, just remember the names: black sea devil, the doomsday fish is your oar fish, okay? You have the goblin shark, you have the deep sea jellyfish, okay, and you have the frilled shark. These are the 5 deep sea animals, okay, which have come to the earth's surface. This has been a very big update in the month of February. Please keep this in mind. Other than this, again, for example, this is again an article from Down to Earth. You have oyster. Oyster has already been asked by UPSC once. Oyster is actually a filter feeder. What is the meaning of filter feeder? Is that it is doing a lot of cleanup. It is helpful in the cleanup of these oceans, okay? So when it is doing the cleanup activity, okay, any other species, there are many species which also do this even, okay? The various sponges in this, they also help. There are also certain baleen whales. They are also important filter feeders, remember that. Now, oyster's blood holds promise for combating drug-resistant superbugs. This is again a new research, okay? So here, not, in fact, this is more both environment and science and tech combined, that the blood of, in fact, oyster, first of all, has a important function. They are filter feeders. They do the part of cleaning up, number one. Second, in fact, even their blood can be used for combating drug resistant. In science and tech, you would have heard about antimicrobial resistance. Okay, so when you take them, this particular, okay, so here, this can help in tackling other infections, and in fact, this can even help in combating the drug resistant superbugs. This also term can be used to what are superbugs. Okay, so just keep this in mind. So this oyster's blood can also be used. Let's see some more updates on the aquatic front. You have whales, you have dolphins, and you have porpoise. Okay, in fact, each of them there has been some development, one or the other. All the three combined are seen as cetaceans under, all these are, by the way, mammals. Okay, so you have whales, you have dolphins, you have porpoise. Now let's have a look at just what these are and just have an idea. See, in dolphins, in fact, just I'll go one by one. Just remember the updates in all the three. Okay, there has been a global declaration on the river dolphins. Okay, so I'll just come to dolphins, but I think we'll just go in sequence. Let's talk about whales first. Now, a couple of updates. There have been articles in the Hindu and the Indian Express. For example, how do sperm whales talk to each other? So there has been a decoding of their communication system, that how the whales are actually talking to each other. Earlier, we did not think that they would be talking, okay, but of course, there's a communication system between them. In fact, in this whole part of the types, or sorry, the species lecture, I'll tell you different ways, okay, which have been found out. So again, this is going on, that the sperm whales can communicate, number one. Now talking of whales, you may have also heard about something known as whale vomit. Now whale vomit is also known as ambergris. Now first thing, is whale vomit released by all the whales? That's not true. It is specific to your sperm whales. Second question, do all the sperm whales release a whale vomit? That's also not true. Hardly, a very specific, a very small percentage, so even less than 10, even 1 to 2% of the sperm whales release a whale vomit. Now this whale vomit actually has a lot of properties. It is used in various industries, specifically the perfume industry, incense industry, because of which this is also known as floating gold. Okay, it's very valuable, and because of that there are also almost every year you will find an article about so much amount of ambergris seized across the Indian coast. Okay, and one last thing to remember here, the sale and trade of ambergris is strictly prohibited under the Wildlife Protection Act. So the Wildlife Protection Act is going to prohibit the sale of this. Okay, so this is again one thing that we have seen. Now this is one update on this, that 1 billion whales are filter feeders, number one. Whales even can talk, communicate with each other. You have the whale vomit, which is there, right? This is again part of cetaceans. Second thing is river dolphins. In river dolphins or dolphins, I'll tell you two things. One, the global, what is happening, and then at the India level, what is happening. Okay, so when I'm talking of river dolphins, first thing that comes to mind in India, okay, and then we'll also understand this whole declaration. See, in India, you have Gangetic river dolphin. You also have, one second, why this is not working. Okay, I think this should be working. Yes, now. So you have the Gangetic river dolphin, which is the national aquatic animal of India. You also have the Indus river dolphin. If this is again in India, which is also found. You also have Irrawaddy dolphin. Okay, and even across the world, in Amazon, in different parts of the world, you also have dolphins. Now there is a global river declaration on dolphins. Only thing to remember here, it is talking about overall 6 species. I have not said 6 dolphins. I'll tell you why. 11 countries have come together to sign the declaration on global protection of river dolphins. Okay, now what is the update here? Please remember, you are talking about 6 species. In 6, remember 5 plus 1. Why 5 plus 1? 5 are your particular dolphin species. Amazon, Ganga, Indus, Irrawaddy, Tukuxi. These 5 are dolphins. But you also have a porpoise that is known as Yangtze finless porpoise. Again, go back to this image. Whales, dolphins, porpoise, all these are known as cetaceans. Porpoise are the smallest of all the 3. Very small. Okay, now coming back, so I said 6. The declaration says that these are 6 river dolphins, but in reality what is that? 5 are dolphins and 1 is a porpoise. Okay, the one that is a porpoise, that one is critically endangered. This is critically endangered. And the 5, the ones that are other, Amazon, Ganges, Indus, Irrawaddy, Tukuxi, these are actually going to be only endangered. This is all you need to know. Amazon, we know the Amazon region. Amazon is known as the rainforest. Okay, very famous for the rainforests. Ganges river dolphin, we know. Indus river dolphin, of course, in Pakistan it is there. In India, Bias. Okay. Irrawaddy dolphin in India, you will find this in Chilika Lake. Chilika Lake of Odisha. You have this Tukuxi and this Yangtze finless porpoise. Yangtze finless porpoise is the one that is critically endangered. Okay, just remember this. So that is again, this is the global declaration on river dolphins. Okay, signed by many countries. Just remember, of course, if it is signed by, so of course India is also going to be a part of this. Main thing is this. There is another porpoise. So I told you one is Yangtze finless porpoise. Another porpoise that is in news is Vaquita porpoise. Why is this in news? Because only 10 Vaquita porpoise or less are present in the world. Okay, even less than 10% is less than the word. Okay, 10 number. Okay, sponges and baleen, these are your filter feeders. They actually help in cleaning up the area. That is the main work of filter feeder. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And see, Tukuxi, if you see this part, I'll just show this to you. This whole part, okay, the whole part of related to Mekong, Mahakam, all of that. So there is Indus, Ganges, Irrawaddy, Yangtze Venus porpoise is there. This whole part is going to be the part related to Tukuxi. Okay. So that is one. And I think one more question you've asked. See, 10% of the sperm whales. See, if the question is, do all the sperm whales produce this? The answer is no. Okay, so only less than 10% of the sperm whales actually produce a whale vomit. So that was my part that I was telling you. Okay, so coming back. So here I hope you remember what is the main update. Just a second. That was the first main update we wanted to say. The global declaration on river dolphins, number 1. Second is this. Ganges river dolphin, National Aquatic Animal of India, tagged for the first time. This is a very recent news, December 19, 2024. Okay. So here, now with dolphins, please remember, and the Gangetic river dolphins, these are essentially blind. So then how are they able to communicate? They communicate through a process that is known as echolocation. So this is a dolphin, let's say, it is going to emit waves. It is going to hit a part, this is going to come back, and from this they are going to see, okay, this is how, let's say, far away or near an object is. Echolocation, by the way, is also used by bats, so it is not exclusive only to the dolphins. So remember, these are essentially blind. They use echolocation to do this whole part, so please remember this. Second thing, dolphin sanctuary in India is, the Ganges dolphin sanctuary is in Vikramshila, Bihar. So that is another update that one needs to know. Okay, so keep this in mind, river dolphins and these updates. Okay, now we'll also have a look at the birds. Okay, so this is again a section, and after this I think in the last part that would be remaining would be some of the mammals that are there in the news. Okay, so I'll see if time permits we can do it today, or otherwise I'll take another small session. In birds there are only few developments that you need to know. Very first, very prominent birds I'll tell you. Okay, just know the name and why was that in news. Bugun Leo Chichla. Okay, what exactly? So first of all, please remember, Bugun is the name of a tribe, okay, or the name of a community. First thing, Bugun Leo Chichla is a word. Bugun tribe is actually helping in the conservation of this bird. First thing is, Bugun is a tribe. Second thing, this is a critically endangered bird. When I say endangered, critically endangered, of course I am referring to the classification of IUCN. Bugun Leo Chichla is only found in Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary of Arunachal Pradesh. Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary of Arunachal Pradesh. This is where this is only found. So please remember that. Okay. So critically endangered. Now why was this in news every year? So what has happened? This particular tribe has taken a lot of good activities or good conservation practices so that they are able to conserve this Bugun Leo Chichla. Okay, so because of that, sometimes they will give a certain land, they will take up conservation activities. So every year you will find one article at least on this Bugun Leo Chichla. So it is a critically endangered bird. Bugun is the tribe from Arunachal Pradesh which is taking the conservation of this bird. Okay, it is only found in Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary in Arunachal Pradesh, Bugun Leo Chichla. Now, second is greater adjutant stork. Now, this year, in fact, in the last few months, there have been a couple of articles on this particular bird. Okay, what is the main thing is that this bird is losing its territory. In fact, this is true for most of the birds, right? There's a lot of encroachment going on, pollution going on, wetlands also getting shrunk. So this is a problem. To the extent that this is now Earlier its habitat was diverse, now it is getting restricted, and you will find this in Assam, and within Assam you will find this in Deepor Beel. So Deepor Beel Lake is again a Ramsar site from Assam. So this is where you will find the greater adjutant stock, and in fact the Deepor Beel is also facing issues of pollution. Okay, great. This particular stock variety, however, there are women from Assam who are helping in the conservation of this particular bird. In fact, internationally also, there's a very famous channel known as this PBS. If you just search it, just 1 month back, they have, or a few months back, they've made a very good video on how the conservation of this bird is happening, and how women from India are playing a very keen role in the conservation of greater adjutant stock. So in some of the species, if you're seeing, what I'm trying to also see, if there is an involvement of a tribe, for example, we saw Kadar tribe, okay, which was removing the invasive species. Same thing here also we are seeing that greater adjutant stock, women are helpful in the conservation, okay. Assam, specifically Deepor Beel, okay, which is a Ramsar site, okay, and main thing is it is losing its territory. This is all you need to know, okay, because this has come across various sources and issues, so you should be knowing about some of these names, okay. Now this is again a very, very specific and a very unique thing that has happened. Extremely rare, half female, half male. What is the name of the bird? The green honey creeper, seen in Colombia. So of course not seen in India, but the main thing to know here, if you see the bird closely, half part is male and half part is female, okay. This very rare phenomena is actually known as bilateral gynandromorphic. This is what makes it very real, that half part of the body or the half coloring of this is, the plumage is male and the half part of this is female. Main thing, what is the name? Green honey creeper, which is showing this extremely rare attribute, half male and half female. The name can also be asked that what is bilateral gynandromorphic or gynandromorphic. So this is what the half plumage is male and half plumage is female. Okay, so please keep this in mind. So this is again a very rare thing which has happened, which has been seen. Now talking of Amur falcons. Now with Amur falcons, there are few terms that are generally seen. See, first of all, Amur falcons are a migratory bird, and they move for a very, these are migratory birds which take up a very long route to travel. In India, you can find them also in Doyang Lake. Doyang Lake is in, for example, Nagaland. These are migratory birds. So they come to India. Now, ahead, for example, of Amur falcons arrival, Manipur district bans their hunting. So again, there were issues that in the northeast when this particular bird was being seen. So there were issues. So again, ban the hunting, etc. So this was a particular current affairs update. Other than that, again, conservation practices are being done. When I'm talking of migratory birds, there is something known as this raptor, R-A-P-T-O-R, M-O-U. MOU means Memorandum of Understanding, okay. And again, these raptor birds are the ones again which take up a lot of migration. So this raptor MOU, please remember, is related to CMS, Convention on Migratory Species, okay, Convention on Migratory Species, which is also known as the Bonn Convention, which is related to these birds. But main thing remember here is this raptor MOU, because it's a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. This is not legally binding. This is not legally binding, okay. Now, critically endangered Jordan's cursor. This is also a recent few months, not spotted in a decade. पिछले 10 सालों से this has not been seen. Of course, first of all, it is critically endangered. Second, in my classes, I've also told you this is only found in Sri Lanka Maleshwar Wildlife Sanctuary, okay, where in Andhra, only here. Next thing, this is a nocturnal bird. We are aware of terms like diurnal, active during day, nocturnal, active during night. There's also something known as crepuscular. Okay, so ones which are active during dawn and dusk. Okay, that is crepuscular. So generally some of the deer example can be this. So this has not been spotted in a decade. Okay, we'll remember Andhra Pradesh. In Andhra Pradesh there is Sri Lanka Maleshwar Wildlife Sanctuary. Just now with Andhra Pradesh we remembered red sanders also. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. Okay, so has not been seen, but remember the name. If you get an article, this was recently seen in, and they can give you, to confuse you, a random area. So that of course is wrong, because you already know in the last 10 odd years you have not seen it. Okay, a lot of migratory birds, they have flocked to Himachal's Pong Dam Lake. Okay, there was a census that was carried out. Now, Pong Dam Lake, this was there in the recent news, and with this you can also prepare the protected area. So Pong Dam Lake is actually a Ramsar site from Himachal. Okay, in the previous UPSC questions you'll also see from Himachal they've asked you other areas. If you're able to remember some of the Ramsar sites they've asked you, you can write in the comment section what they've actually asked you. There was a simple question on which area. Now here we are talking of bar-headed goose. Bar-headed goose was one of the very prominent varieties that was seen here in the Pong Dam Lake region. So just remember that. Again, whenever there is a Ramsar site, all these wetlands are of course ecotones. A lot of birds visit those areas. So all these are in general very good wintering sites for migratory birds. For example, if I say Keola Deo, so Keola Deo was also a very prominent site for Siberian crane. Which, and you know, the name is Siberian crane. So from Siberia it used to come. But in the same case here also, for many years it has not been cited. Just like Jordan cursor has not been cited for many years. So we'll also keep this in mind. Okay. Alright. Now, two very prominent birds we'll see. Great Indian bustard. Okay. Here there are a couple of things that you need to know. Of course, these are critically endangered. Now, Great Indian bustard is mostly, I'm saying mostly, not all, is found in Desert National Park of Rajasthan. Okay, Desert National Park of Rajasthan, this is mostly found. Now, second or next thing to remember here in Great Indian bustard, it is a very heavy flying bustard species, very heavy. For GIB, now Indian government has a conservation program, okay, for bustard. By the way, please remember, there are actually total of 4 bustard species, 4. In India's bustard conservation program, we have extended that program to 2 species. So if you get a question that in India's bustard conservation program, all the species of bustard are covered, no, only 2 species are covered. One is Great Indian bustard. Other is this lesser florican. You have 2 other, so you also have a Bengal florican, you also have a McQueen bustard. Those 2 are not covered. Only 2 out of these 4 are covered in the India's conservation program for the bustard. Coming back to this, mostly in Desert National Park it is found. If of course it's also found in Gujarat, it can also be found in Pakistan, it can also be found in parts of central India and also Karnataka. So that is Great Indian bustard, very heavy. Why was this in news? Because of getting, so again, it has a very poor frontal ocular vision. It cannot see very well. Because of this, it was colliding in these electric wires. Related to this, there was a famous Supreme Court case, M.K. Ranjit Singh versus Union of India, related to the conservation of these bustards. Okay, so keep this, M.K. Ranjit Singh versus Union of India. Now this case initially had said that you have to install bird diverters, but later on the government said that this is almost impossible to do. We will not be able to do this. So that was also an issue. Okay. So that was also a challenge in this particular case. But later on, of course, we get to know the government ultimately said that administratively we have to go for the things which is more relevant. This is the main part for Great Indian bustard. Again, I have told you 2 species. This particular program has been extended. And we are covering 2 species. One is GIB and one is lesser florican. There are 2 which are not covered under it. I've already told you Bengal florican and also this McQueen bustard. Desert National Park, critically endangered. Now, this is something very important. Boost for fight to save GIB. Why? Because the chick is born through IVF. In vitro fertilization. What is the meaning of in vitro? In vitro means in the lab. If we are able to conserve them, see, in conservation, you hear about in situ conservation, you hear about ex situ conservation, right? In situ means in that area. So through a national park, through a wildlife sanctuary, through a conservation reserve, community reserve, sacred grove, all these are examples of in situ. Ex situ example can be, for example, captive breeding. Now it can also be IVF. So GIB can also be saved through IVF. Is this the only species which can be saved through IVF? Of course not. Very recently, Australian scientists create 28 kangaroo embryos using IVF. And when I say Australia and kangaroos, so we are talking of marsupials. Marsupials, if you know, these have pouch. In these pouch, they nurture their small ones. So examples like koalas, Tasmanian devil, wombat, just see the names, again directly from down to earth, okay, or even possums, opossums, they can also be conserved through IVF. So again you notice how biotech or science part is also combining with the environment part. Both will go hand in hand. Okay, and then the last update on birds would be this part of vultures. Okay, now in vultures, what are we saying? Nemosolide ban. Okay, it's again a step towards saving the vultures, and the battle is far from over. Now vultures, remember, I'm writing a code 4 of 9. It simply means in India you have 9 species of vultures. Out of these 9, 4 species are critically endangered. 4 are critically endangered. Is there any way to remember them? Yes. There's a long billed, there is a slender billed, red-headed vulture, and there's also a white. So 2 based on colors and 2 based on their bill. Okay, long billed, slender billed, red-headed, and this white vulture, all these are critically endangered. Other 5 are not. That is one. Now nemosolide ban is another step towards saving the vultures, but the battle is far from over. Now please note here, the vulture population has drastically declined. Why? Because of use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. The most prominent, many of you know, is diclofenac. And these are also referred to as fatal 4. There are 4 such fatal drugs which lead to the death of cattle, or which lead to the death of vultures. How? These are painkillers. The painkiller is given to the cattle, and after, when the cattle dies, they are eaten up by the vultures, and this causes kidney failure in the vultures. Now, so one is diclofenac, you have aceclofenac, you have ketoprofen, and you have nemosolide. All these are there. Now I'm using another color so that it is very clear to you. Diclofenac was banned in way back in 2006. Was it banned throughout? No, it was only banned for veterinary use. It was banned for veterinary use. Aceclofenac, ketoprofen, these 2 were banned in 2023. And nemosolide, which we are seeing just now, the article is of January 10, 2025, but just in the end of December this was banned. So this was banned in very recently, in the end of December. So all these have now been banned. Why? Because of the negative impact this was having on the particular, let's say, species of vultures. Okay, no, see, GIB is one of, just I think somebody has a confusion on GIB. Great Indian bustard is one of the bustard species in India's government program. Okay, specifically for bustard conservation. Specific for bustard conservation, we are conserving 2 particular species of bustard. One of them is GIB and one of them is lesser florican. In total you have 4 bustard species. 4. Okay, so that is the point I'm telling you. So the government's program is talking of 2 bustard species. That is the main takeaway. Now, so you have diclofenac, you have aceclofenac, you have ketoprofen, you have nemosolide. Okay, these are all non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Okay, last thing you can also know, see, these are your drugs given to the cattle. there are also pesticides that are used. Okay, so just write the name, for example, or insecticide like carbofuran. The use of carbofuran as a pesticide leads to the death of Himalayan griffon vultures. Okay, Himalayan griffon vultures, the use of pesticides is what is causing problem. Then please write the name carbofuran. It's again a pesticide which is causing the death of Himalayan griffon vultures. I'll just write it here. Himalayan griffon vultures. All right. So with this, we'll end the very first session, because again we want the HYTs to not be very long session. So just again a very quick recap. Today in species 1, what we have done, we started with the invasive species, the ones that are there in the news. We have then seen the trees, plants, and even certain fungus varieties. After that, we have seen some of the aquatic species. We've seen birds. See, of course, there are some species remaining. I have not done crocodile yet. Okay, I have not done the turtles and other turtle-related developments. Plus, I have not done the mammal part. That we'll do specifically in species 2. That also will be there. Okay, so there will be one more update here. Secondly, how the sessions are planned, we will again have a specific session on terms. There are many terms related to biodiversity, related to climate change that many of us don't know. So in a very short session, again we'll have a look at all those terms. Okay, so similarly, just keep on following these HYTs, whatever we are doing. Again, we try to have even more compact and short sessions so that you can give the maximum return on investment. Okay, yes, Kundan, very good point. Meloxicam is a safe alternative, okay, which is there, right? So if there's any doubt, you can let me know. Otherwise, we'll meet in the next session. You will be notified. Most probably the session will be tomorrow. But of course, you will get the notification, okay? And keep on attending them. If there's any doubt, you can just ask it. It would be better if you attended live, okay? Many students asked that we wanted a live session. Hence, we're having a live session, okay? So I think we have covered some amount of species in this part, okay? Other species and other part we will be doing, okay? Thank you so much, Kundan. Other people, Shri Lakshmi. Okay, thank you so much, and I think we'll now meet in the next session very shortly. All right. If there's any doubt, you can just go. I'm just here for one more minute. Otherwise, if there's no doubt, we'll end it. Okay, so again, now if you do species in this manner, again, you're breaking them down into small segments. Do these segments, revise your static notes from where most of you, if you've done the prelims crash course, you already have very comprehensive notes. Other people, whatever book, whatever source you're following, here you are getting the whole breadth of all the current affairs development on all the major species. So this will be a very good quick revision. This will give you a lot of confidence before you enter the exam. That is why I started the very first lecture with species itself. In fact, when I again do whatever terms have been there in the Hindu or the Indian Express in the last 1.5 years, all those terms, etc., there are dedicated HYTs for that. So you don't have to worry. Okay. Thank you so much. Again, we'll meet very shortly. Thank you.